if you do have a forefoot condition, you just no idea what shoe to get.
Here's a test that I sometimes get people to do in the clinic.
I have this honest, frank conversation with my patients.
Barefoot shoes, yes or no?
There's a massive risk of foot and ankle issues.
And is actually wearing a high heel good for you?
The worst running shoe for beginners is... Welcome back to the best of both worlds. Today we're going to be discussing the biggest mistakes that our patients make when choosing their shoes. And we're going to share with you how to avoid these mistakes, live a longer, healthier life pain-free. I'm Paul McCauley, podiatrist and foot health content creator, and I'm lucky enough to try a new pair of shoes every day. I create shoe reviews for you so that you don't make the same mistakes buying the wrong pair of shoes, because at the end of the day, shoes are expensive.
And I'm Matt Winter, Doctor of Physical Therapy, and together today we're going to fix your feet. All right, mate, we're back. How are you out of 10?
Mate, I am 10 out of 10. Yeah, definitely 10 out of 10. I've got some exciting news coming.
Oh, can you share?
I can't share any details at the moment, but everyone will know in due course.
Okay, awesome.
And mate, how are you out of 10?
Oh, thanks for asking. Mate, I'm honestly 10 out of 10 today. Like, just doing this again, sharing what we share, hanging out with you, watching and learning how you set up the thing today. Stressful, but I'm so psyched to be back.
Yeah, I'm psyched too. Let's get into it.
So why does it matter what shoes you're wearing?
We see that a shoe, the wrong shoe, can completely ruin someone's like mechanics. It can affect the knees, the hips, and just changing the shoe to the right shoe can make such a difference. You don't need to necessarily get custom insoles, go for a surgery. You can just wear a better shoe and you can get better.
Sometimes we see that actually patients look better without their shoes on than in the shoes they've chosen. So it's actually taking their mechanics and making it worse.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely something we see day in, day out. I think the most common thing that we'll see is someone wearing like a really soft cushion shoe. You can imagine if you're struggling to balance standing on one leg on the hard floor and then suddenly you put yourself on a cushion, then it's going to be even harder. And we see there's, it's very fashionable to wear like maybe a Skechers or On running shoes. And although they look great and as soon as you put them on they feel great, it can actually cause more strain on the body. You become way more tired at the end of the day, and that fatigue can then lead into like foot conditions and lower limb conditions.
So it's important because this is something we do every day. We wear these things every day. It's easy to change, and changing it might actually allow patients to avoid costly procedures, long-term physiotherapy, insoles. So you're saving them a lot of money, saving them a lot of pain, and it's easy to do.
Yeah, honestly, sometimes when the patient comes in and I just tell them to get a different shoe, and if they come in the next time they tell me, oh Paul, my pain's gone, like obviously I've not made thousands of dollars from seeing them over and over again, but when you can make such a difference with just changing the shoes, honestly, you feel like a magician.
I love it. So without seeing me or you, is there anything that one of our listeners can do when they go into a shop and they're choosing a shoe to ensure, or to at least give themselves a better chance of choosing the right shoe?
Yeah, I think the person's got to go into the shop knowing exactly the purpose of what they're going to use that shoe for. So whether it's going to be a shoe that it's just, they're going to wear it on the weekends, just go out for dinner. So they're going to sit down in this shoe. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's when you're choosing a shoe for long periods of walking, then we can definitely talk through what someone should consider for that type of activity.
So let's talk about walking.
Yeah.
Something a lot of people do for exercise. What are the key features of a shoe that's good for walking?
Yeah, so I think if we'll start with like the feel of the shoe. It doesn't necessarily matter whether it feels soft or firm, but when you pick up the shoe in the shop, I suppose you want to test out what the structure's like. So if I grab my shoe just to maybe demo.
God.
Don't get too close to this, man.
Am I allowed to breathe?
Exactly not. Okay. Yeah.
And
Do you want to hold the mic to me?
I'll just hold. For the purpose of those listening, I'm now holding Paul's microphone.
Yeah.
Do carry on.
Okay, so we've got our shoe here. I think the first thing that I would do is feel the heel counter. So we're going to push on the back of it. We want that to be firm, and we want the heel cup to be firm too. That's going to give the ankle stability, meaning it's not going to wobble side to side and reduce the strain on your foot when you're walking for long distances. Then I would do a bit of a twist test. So you don't really want it to compress too much. And then you also want to bend it in half. If it bends in half very easily, so for example, Converse Chuck Taylors will bend in half, literally fold in your hands.
There goes your Converse sponsorship.
So that you wouldn't be walking longer distances than that. But for this one, it doesn't bend through the middle. You want it to bend at the toe box so that you can propel on through your big toe. And then I suppose with the width of the base, if you have the wider the base, the more stability as well. And then the midsole material itself, it can be soft or firm depending on what foot type you have as well. And then I suppose you want to check the fit.
Okay, so in terms of checking the fit, what should they be doing?
Yeah, for the fit, then we can take the insole out of the shoe. If it's a sports shoe, then it's going to come out. And that's, I suppose you'll be looking for a sports style shoe if you were looking for something that you want to use for walking. So you can take that out of the shoe. You can place it on the ground. You can place your foot on the insole on the ground, and then you can stand up. And then we can place our thumb in front of our longest toe, whether that's your first toe or your second toe. Check that we've got that width, which I do, which is great. So there we go. That's how you would find the right fit. And you don't want your toes splaying over the side of your insole either. If they really splay over the side of the insole, then they're too narrow. You need to go for a wider fit. And if you're a lady and you're like, oh, I can't find the right width, you could go to a men's shoe because they tend to be wider.
Yeah, I love that.
Been holding out, so yeah.
My arm is absolutely killing me. There's also the issue of hot climate and people that walk long distances. Is it true that the foot expands over time, and do we need to take that into consideration when choosing that width?
Yeah, definitely. It does expand over time, especially in the afternoon. So usually I would recommend people going to try on their shoes in the afternoon. That way they're more likely to get a better fit shoe. And I suppose if you're buying, I know quite a few people went walking, did the Camino, and they bought their shoes in the UK, and then they got a lot of problems on the Camino because it's super hot in France and Spain. And then, so what they potentially would need to do in that situation is definitely try them on in the afternoon.
That's a really good tip.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's delve down into some conditions then. Plantar fasciitis is one that we see a lot in the clinic. Are there specific considerations for this condition? Yeah, for sure. For plantar fasciitis, a lot of people think, oh, I need something soft because my heel hurts. But really, there's two types of plantar fasciitis. You've got compressive, where it hurts when you put pressure on the heel. And then you have tensile, where when you push your toes off, you feel the pain. Today I actually saw a patient who had both. So she needs a bit of cushioning under the heel, but then also needs stability for pushing off. So a lot of people think they need cushioning because they want it to be soft, comfortable, but actually the soft shoe causes it to be unstable, and then the instability causes your foot to have to work harder and actually leads to more pain over time. So if you do have plantar fasciitis, skip on the Skechers and pick maybe something like an Asics Kayano. Honestly, it's my number one pick for it. It's such a great shoe because it has a firm midsole, so you don't excessively pronate or roll in. And if you reduce the amount that your foot rolls in, then you do reduce the strain on your plantar fascia. As well as that, it does have a nice rock to it, and that reduces the amount of strain on your big toe, which will reduce the pulling on your plantar fascia as well. So overall for plantar fasciitis, you want to look for like a firm, stable shoe. So going to brands like Hoka, Asics, New Balance, and asking for a stability shoe, you'll be absolutely fine. So are there any times when the Asics Kayano is not the best shoe for plantar fasciitis?
Yeah, I'd say that potentially I reckon like 5 to 10% of cases, you've got that rigid, high arch foot, your foot doesn't roll in, it's just really stiff, and you've definitely got compressive style plantar fasciitis, you need cushioning. So in that person, then you'd go for that max cushioning shoe. But if you're not sure which foot type you have, definitely see a professional before buying, because you can spend £200 on this shoe or spend like £70 going to see a healthcare practitioner who could tell you which shoe to wear.
it's not just the Asics Kayano, is it? Because there are other shoes that are stable. So we've got like the New Balance 860. You already mentioned Hoka, so the Gaviota, isn't it? That your go-to
Very
shoe.
knowledgeable, Matt.
Wonder why? Who am I working with? Paul, the podiatrist. So these two are other options, aren't they?
Yeah.
So the New Balance, is that for the slightly bigger foot in general? And is that how you decide?
To be honest, every year there's a new model, and some models are better than others. Like, we've noticed all stability shoes getting that bit softer, but getting wider. But yeah, some brands have a wider toe box. So for New Balance, they have more rectangular toe box. So the Asics tend to have a much more narrow sort of toe box, especially around the fifth toe. It often rubs a lot of people. So if you do have that wider foot, yeah, Brooks, New Balance are probably my favourites. Hoka, they look very large, but they're not necessarily the widest in the toe box. But if you've got a wide toe box, I would avoid the Asics Kayanos.
And what I've learned from you as well is that if you have a wide foot and you wear a shoe that's too narrow, by clumping your feet together, it actually makes you more unstable, which could then add to that force going through the plantar fascia as well. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. If you, I think that comes down to if your foot's wide across the arch. So if you are wearing a Nike, say like a Nike shoe, they tend to have quite a narrow base or last, as we would call it in shoes, and then your arch, if it's wider than the shoe, will actually just collapse through the side of the upper, and therefore you can just excessively roll through it. So yeah, I think that's definitely something to consider.
Okay, so let me summarise. For plantar fasciitis, we're generally 90% of the time looking for a stable shoe, like an Asics Kayano, a New Balance 860, etc. We want to make sure that the width is sufficient to fit the foot so it's not more unstable. And some people, especially with the pain when they land on their heel, specifically might need a little bit more cushioning. But that's a small percentage of the population.
Yeah, I think that's where it's if you're really not sure, you've got to see
stability.
Got to see someone, because there's those people that have chronic plantar fasciitis and everything hurts. So when they put their heel down, it hurts too, but it could still be tensile.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, bit of a tough one.
So another condition we see a lot of is Achilles tendinopathy. Does it differ here? Does the shoe choice differ?
Yeah, I think the important factors of the shoes are slightly different. So we focus more on the heel to toe difference is one of the key factors. So when we're talking about that, in a lot of running shoes, they do have between a 6 to 12 millimeter heel to toe drop. And the higher the heel to toe drop, the better for Achilles tendinopathy. So we want it to be high. So for the Brooks Adrenaline has 12 mil heel to toe drop. So most of the time, that's one thing I'll go to. It also has a firm heel counter. So the heel counter underneath the heel is hard. So if it's too soft, your heel will actually just sink into it and that drop will reduce. Whereas this is hard, and so it stops the foot from dropping. You don't want that foot to drop into dorsiflexion, otherwise it puts more strain on the back of the leg.
What is dorsiflexion? Dorsiflexion
is when the top of the foot moves closer to the shin, so the foot moves up in the air.
Okay, so, and let's just explain the heel to toe drop. What does that mean in practical terms?
So a thicker heel compared to the forefoot. So the foam at the heel is thicker, and the forefoot is thinner, and it gives you a high-heeled effect.
So it makes you look like you're walking in high heels, essentially, or makes it feel a bit like you're walking in high heels.
Exactly.
And that, as far as I understand, means that we're taking the strain off the Achilles tendon, almost putting it on a little bit of slack. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Putting it on slack, allowing it to recover, heal, rather than just being damaged every step that we take.
In this situation, then, is actually wearing a high heel good for you?
Well, yeah, I think wearing a high heel could benefit you. The problem with high heels are that often come with instability. The fact that it's just your foot on this very thin stick of material. Foot's on there, and then your ankle's got no support. So actually, we know that the movement side to side can also irritate the Achilles too. So it's better than very flat sandally shoes, but maybe not as good as a sports trainer.
Oh yeah, and here's a little hack. See if you agree with this. Sometimes I just get people to put a very small heel raise, or even a slightly larger heel raise, sort of about 6 millimeters to 8 millimeters in the back of their shoe.
Yeah,
and that can be enough to take the edge off the pain. Is that something you recommend as well?
Yeah, that's definitely something I'll do in clinic straight away. Is heel raises out into the shoes. How does that feel? Oh, better. Happy days. Easy win with the patient.
And we're aiming to get rid of that heel raise, right?
Yeah, exactly. Eventually, definitely, it's a short-term method that we use to reduce the pain.
Sometimes it's actually the contact of the shoe, isn't it, on the Achilles that can irritate the insertion. What can people do about that?
I think that's a really important question, and I think people need to have some close attention to detail. Like look at what shoe is irritating him. So usually, maybe a shoe with a low cut. So often the flatter shoes have that lower cut, and then you want to go and find something with a really deep heel cup. So some running shoes have really deep heel cups. So like the Brooks Ghost Max, which we've mentioned in clinic a lot recently. I love it for treating foot conditions, and it has a massive volume in it. So the cup is wide, it doesn't press on the back, and it's super padded, so it actually feel a lot more comfortable. Whereas like your Stan Smiths or your Adidas Sambas, they are obviously flat and they have like a very low cut, and that they often give people blisters.
Yeah, well, I was going to bring that up actually because one of your best recommendations for shoes was Adidas Sambas, wasn't it, for me?
I didn't recommend them.
Oh no, it was Adam. Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
Do you think a podiatrist would recommend a bad shoe?
No, I wanted to blame you for something. No, but it really cut up my Achilles, and like I had really bad blisters from that.
Yeah.
I did get used to it in the end, but yeah, probably not a good shoe to wear long term.
Yeah, especially so if you have Achilles tendinopathy, it's flat, so it's got no heel to toe drop. It's going to irritate it, and then also that low cut heel cup could irritate it if it's insertional as well.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay, one for the ladies now. Forefoot pain. First of all, what is the forefoot?
So, easy one. The forefoot's at the front of the foot. So the area that we're looking at here is between the toes and the start of the arch, and all the way across from the big toe to the little toe. So yeah, very common for ladies to get forefoot conditions, but also we do see them often in runners as well.
Yeah, got it. And is that more about the shoes that these ladies are wearing, or is it something intrinsic in their foot type?
Yeah, a couple of things. So we often see, obviously, ladies' fashion from way back in, like, especially Chinese culture. They used to bind the feet. They used to want them to be smaller. So a lot of ladies don't want to wear bigger shoes because they don't think it's as attractive, and so they try and fit into these smaller shoes. Actually, like 75% of people are wearing the wrong size shoes, which is pretty crazy.
Wow.
And I definitely see that in clinic as well. And so, yeah, the fashion market is just these pointed, small shoes that a lot of these ladies are wearing to the office. They're spending most of their time in day to day, and it really compresses the toes into an unnatural shape. That paired with high heels, where there's a lot of pressure on the forefoot as well, can easily lead to these forefoot conditions.
Got it. So now on to shoe considerations. If someone does have a forefoot condition, let's say Morton's neuroma, but there's also metatarsalgia that they might have been told they have, what should they be looking for in their shoe?
Yeah, they've got to know that if they've got a forefoot condition, if they don't wear shoes that are wide enough, their foot is never going to get better. So I have this honest, frank conversation with my patients, and I say to them, look, you're here to get better. We're going to get you in a wider shoe. We're going to reduce the pain down. When the pain goes away, we can start to bring in other shoes as well. So yeah, they need to be looking at the width. So for ladies who can't get a shoe wide enough for them, then they may have to wear the men's style. But luckily nowadays, there's quite like a lot of unisex shoes, and the colour's quite neutral as well, which is good for them. So limiting the pressure on each side is going to reduce their pain. And then I suppose if they're getting pain like around the big toe joint, it'd be good to look at what are the other considerations, like is it the amount the foot's like collapsing in that's causing a strain on that big toe joint. If it was, then we'd be looking at something which is a firmer structure. And then I suppose if they're wearing like a high heel, we'd be looking at reducing the heel so there's less pressure on the forefoot.
And that's the problem with some of the stability shoes, isn't it? So you've got the shoes might be stable, which might reduce the roll onto the toe.
Yeah.
But if they've got a higher heel to toe drop,
then
that puts more force on the forefoot. So are there any shoes that are slightly flatter with the wide toe box and are stable?
Yeah, there definitely are. I mean, in general, I'm pretty sure that Hoka shoes have like a 6 mil heel to toe drop, especially in their Gaviotas. I think it's about that. So that's a bit lower. Then we do have our zero drop shoes. Some great ones are Ultra. They're zero drop, which means there's no difference between the heel and toe. They're also got an anatomical toe box, so it's meant to replicate your foot's anatomy and not compress either. So that can be a really good option too.
Rockers. And I'm not talking about Led Zeppelin.
Oui.
Oh, all the jokes. So rockers now are built into a lot of these shoes. First of all, can you explain what a rocker is, and is it good or bad for forefoot pain?
Yeah, for sure. So a rocker is on the front of the shoe, obviously, and it's the curvature on the front of the shoe. So the rocker, basically the way it works is as you transfer your weight forwards and push it towards the rocker, then it will allow you to propel on further and push off. So in a lot of very fast, aggressive running shoes, they'll have the carbon plate in that paired with a very aggressive rocker to be able to push themselves on forwards and generate energy. And we see that in a lot of sports shoes and shoes in general. And for forefoot conditions, they do actually really help because they reduce the time under load, the time that you spend on your forefoot, which will reduce the amount of irritation the areas get, and the amount of pain you feel and damage that's done. So they can really help. And every shoe has a slightly different rocker, and the apex of the rocker can be at different places. So if your pain is sort of further back in the forefoot, then you want your apex to be slightly further back too. So you can compare shoe to shoe where the apex is, and you can put your foot in the shoe, you can feel where your big toe sits, you can sort of imaginally mark it on the shoe and then compare that to another shoe as well. Or you just come to see me and I can tell you which one's better.
So you mentioned carbon plates there as well. Obviously that makes the shoe stiffer.
Yeah.
That might reduce the amount of flexion that occurs at these toes. Is that right? Can a carbon plate actually help these conditions?
Yeah, carbon plate can definitely help it. I think a forefoot condition, the way a carbon plate can really help it is like hallux limitus or rigidus, which is where the big toe is arthritic. It doesn't move as well, and any movement within it actually irritates it. So the carbon plate can make it super stiff, and that with an aggressive rocker means your big toe doesn't have to do any work, because as you push your weight on, the rocker rocks you forwards, and that carbon plate helps to sort of push you on, and that can make it actually a bit more comfortable. So I did have a lady with a high arch hallux rigidus. She's having a lot of pain. We tried the carbon plate in the clinic within the shoe, and it made it better, but $120 for a carbon plate on one side. I thought, well, may as well just get a new pair of shoes. So she went out and got like a marathon pair of Sauconys, and she said the big toe pain's got better.
Okay, so to summarize, for forefoot conditions, what we want is first off a wide fit, and that gives space. If that doesn't work, then we can start to consider other things, which would be potentially having a forefoot rocker.
Yeah.
Considering a stability shoe, so you're not rolling into the forefoot, especially into the big toe.
Yeah.
But making sure that if we are getting a stability shoe, we don't have a big heel to toe drop.
Yeah, exactly.
And then potentially considering a carbon plated shoe, which stiffens the sole and reduces the amount of time under that forefoot load.
Yeah, exactly. And just a bit of bonus for the listeners who have tuned in. If you do have a forefoot condition and you just no idea what shoe to get the Brooks Ghost Max 2.
Oh, we've used that in clinic.
Yeah,
How
we've used
good?
it in clinic. It's so good, and I haven't had a patient where I've had a problem with it yet. So yeah,
I mean, it looks like an absolute boat.
it looks like a boat.
Yeah.
And people say that's what it feels
It
like.
runs like a boat.
Yeah, but then the pain gets better.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's been magic for me as well. Yeah, great recommendation, that.
Thank you.
We've all got a grandma with a toe that sort of faces the wrong way. What is going on there, and what do we need to consider in terms of shoes to deal with that?
Sure, yeah. It's commonly called a bunion, or in, I suppose, scientific terminology, we call it hallux valgus. And basically, it's the angle of the phalanx, the toe, against the metatarsal. And the bigger the angle, the worse the bunion as well. I think it can commonly get confused with like some big toe arthritis as well. So if you're not sure, you can ask someone about it.
Does it matter?
I think it does matter. I think it is treated in different ways, and people can be trying to use a toe separator when the big toe's hurting, and it's actually limited range of motion, and that would not make a difference. So it definitely matters. Then for this condition, there's some really important factors. So many people think it's down to shoes. Oh, it's because I wore high heels all my 20s and my 30s. Or my mum's got one. And actually, yes, it's to do with the shoes. Yes, genetics is a factor. But then there's also the factor of excessive pronation. So if your foot excessively rolls in, you're more likely to develop a bunion because there's more pressure going on the medial or the inside portion of your big toe, which can lead to the joint sort of moving into that abnormal position. And then lastly, tight calves. So if you have tight calves, you'll put more pressure on your forefoot, and that can lead to more of a bunion develop. So when a surgeon does a surgery on the bunion, they're like crack it, pin it, and then they'll do a calf release. So they're reducing the strain on the forefoot for after, so it doesn't come back.
So actually, for all forefoot conditions, calf length is really important.
Yeah, exactly. I think calf length is really important for any foot condition in general. But yeah, forefoot conditions definitely. So yeah, if you're wondering if you've got a forefoot condition like you were talking about earlier, you're talking about the shoes, but also stretch your calves.
Great. Okay, great background. What can they do shoe-wise?
Yeah, so shoe-wise, I would always go for a wide shoe again. For ladies, you can get some brands like New Balance and Brooks in 2E. And for like sandals wise, Birkenstocks tend to have a pretty wide base as well. And then you want some stability too. So you want that stiffer, firmer soled shoe. You don't want that shoe that flexes in half easily. So when you go to the shop, make sure it doesn't twist too easily. Make sure it doesn't bend too easily. So it's giving you that stability as well. I think at Birkenstocks they actually do these Arizona slides, but they have the sort of toe ring over the big toe. I quite like that for bunions. Keeps it in place. I suppose it reduces...
It's got a bit of vibe to it, that toe ring.
A bit of vibe, just what I like, yeah.
Do you?
No. So back to the shoes. So I would go for bunions, wide and stable.
Okay, so from grandmas to weekend warriors. Oh, some grandmas can be weekend warriors as well. My mum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pleased you didn't say your mum. So let's go straight to the most controversial topic: barefoot shoes. Yes or no?
Well, I think I've spoken enough. So why don't you let loose on this one?
Oh God, this is where I sit with it. We've been evolving into bipedal organisms for about 4 million years. We've been Homo sapiens for about 300,000, and yet we've lived in this industrial, hard, flawed world for about 200. So we are perfectly evolved for a world that we don't live in. And yet we want to act like we live 300 years ago, 400 years ago. So yes, we're evolved. Yes, we should be able to walk bare feet, but the reality is we can't, or most of us can't, unless you are a North African runner that's been barefoot all their life, you've got a body fat percentage of 12%, and you're conditioned to run barefoot or without support. And that's what I talk through with my patients. So we have to wear shoes just to combat the environment that we're in.
Yeah, exactly. when our foot hits the floor doesn't mould around us. Back a few thousand years ago, you hit the floor, oh, it's nice little dirt, a bit of dirt around you, or maybe sand, and the environment moulds to your foot. But now, there's no chance of it happening. And I think, a lot of people online get at me. So for me, for barefoot shoes, I do think there's a shoe for every foot. But at the same time, when patients come in to see me with foot pain, and they're asking me, can they wear barefoot shoes? Probably 98% of the time, they're not going to be able to wear barefoot shoes. Because with a barefoot shoe, the only thing that I can really offload is 4 foot width. But for every other condition, we use the shoe's geometry, the shoe's cushioning, the shoe's stability to redistribute load to other parts of the foot so that the area that's injured can heal. And barefoot shoes, for me, they can't do that at all. But if my patient's so keen to wear barefoot shoes, then our goal is to get there, to get them to be able to wear barefoot shoes. But it will be a journey. Everything will be done gradually. We'll have to do some, definitely intrinsic foot strengthening, some lower limb strengthening. We're going to have to make sure like the perfect candidate for it. Like you say, we don't want them to necessarily be excessively like overweight, and so they can tolerate the load it's going to put through their foot and ankle, because we know that wearing barefoot shoes is going to increase the risk of foot and ankle issues. Yeah, do you prescribe them?
No, because I think it's just too high risk to reward. But the other thing is discussing when you would use them. So as you said there, you might want to use them if you're going for spending some time on the beach, for example, or if you're just walking, or you're going on holiday and you're going to be, walking and spending a lot of time on grassy fields or something like that. But if you're not to go running in, and if you were to go running in them, it's something you'd have to build up very slowly into. So yes, the body has the ability to adapt. We're definitely adaptable organisms, but you have to balance that load with rest and then really gradually build up that load. Otherwise, and we've seen it, both of us, you can end up with not just tendon issues, but fractures, stress fractures. So it can be actually really quite dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be a bit of a Matt here. I'm going to name a study, 2023 study.
It's catching.
Yeah. This is the first one I've ever named. But basically, that minimalist shoes, they can strengthen the intrinsics, but actually there's a massive risk of foot and ankle issues from barefoot shoes as well. They can actually double your injury risk from wearing them. So we know from the literature actually that it can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months to get used to wearing barefoot shoes or minimalist shoes. And that we know people don't go gradual. The reason they come and see us because they do too much too soon in the wrong equipment. Are there anyone who you definitely don't recommend barefoot shoes to?
Yes. I would say, first of all, the heavier population. There's just more force going through. Those that are less conditioned. Females, especially at higher risk of osteoporosis, and that's why I mentioned females really, so that perimenopausal, menopausal age, especially if there's a history of osteoporosis or even osteopenia. So again, we're just always thinking about risk versus benefit, and to me, that's the higher risk group.
Yeah, for sure.
There's one more group actually I want to ask you about. What about the hypermobile group? Is that another risk factor in barefoot shoes?
Yeah, I think it's hard. Being hypermobile tends to mean that you've got very flexible joints, and you need to be strong when you're hypermobile. And people will say, "Oh, I'll just stick them in a barefoot shoe and they'll get stronger." But if they go into a barefoot shoe and they do their normal day-to-day activities and it's too much, then they may end up with more pain. I think it's not something I would do. I know there's lots of people out there probably will say it's the thing to do, but I personally wouldn't do it. I think I would get better results from going into a stability shoe, giving that ankle stability, giving them a nice smooth ride, and I think they'd enjoy that journey more than a barefoot shoe.
In the end, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is allow people to live healthy, thriving lives where they can exercise, get strong, and if you're constantly getting injured because you're wearing a shoe, you're just interrupting that journey of health.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it.
So we put those on the bonfire. What is a good shoe for someone starting out running?
Yeah, big question. I think when you're starting out running, it's going to be hard. Running is hard. It's tiring, it's fatiguing, it puts a lot of demands on your body, especially if you're new to it. So for me, I think the easiest option is to go for a stability shoe. It doesn't have to be like max stability, maybe like a moderate stability shoe. But if you go into a cushioning shoe, it, like we discussed earlier, standing on the hard floor barefoot is going to be hard enough. But standing on one leg on a cushion is going to make it put a lot of strain on your foot and ankle. If you're not quite ready for that, then going into that firmer, more stable shoe is going to reduce that amount of movement side to side, and you can just focus on moving forwards, moving your body forwards. And I think that's going to be better. So moderate stability shoes, if we're just going through like the big ones, we've got the Hoka Arahi, you've got the Asics GT 2000s, then we've got the Brooks, potentially Glycerin / Adrenaline are going to be decent options. So I would start with that moderate stability shoe.
Here's a test that I sometimes get people to do in the clinic. Get them to stand on their one leg on the ground, and then hands on hips, maybe close their eyes if they can. See how long they can stand, see how stable it feels, are they making any mistakes? And then get them to put their shoe on and do the same thing, and to see the change in stability. And if it's horrendously bad in the shoe, but they're okay without the shoe, that's probably a shoe that's not great for them. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, we know that it can put instability on the foot and ankle, but then that can affect the knee, can also affect the hip, and we can see lots of problems with a very soft shoe. So just starting with a slightly firmer shoe, and then you can build your rotation out from there. If you go on for that bit longer, then you can choose a slightly different shoe so you can get used to the demands of that shoe as well.
The worst shoe for running?
The worst running shoe for beginners is the Adidas Adios Pro 4s. They are so unstable. They're so highly cushioned. They're narrow. They're too lightweight. I went and did the 10K, and I was running along. I could see this girl in front of me, luminous Adidas Adios Pros, brand spanking new, and in front of me she just walks to the side. She starts stretching out her foot, because I know she's not training them, and if she's running at my pace, she's definitely a beginner, and she was in a lot of pain. They are terrible for beginners. So yeah, don't go when you're a runner, beginner, don't go top shelf and go, oh yeah, I'll get the most expensive, because they're probably going to be super shoes, and they're probably going to be super incompatible.
No, that's great. Okay, so our beginner runner, they've done their foundations. They're now looking to integrate a little bit of speed into their program. What's a good starting speed shoe?
Yeah, I think firstly, I would do the speed runs in their daily running shoe initially, just to get used to the loads of the speed running. Once they're all good with that, they haven't shown any signs of injuries, then looking at that next shoe. And it would be a case of understanding what you need more of. So with a speed shoe, they tend to be lighter, maybe like a bit softer, more spongy, which will give you a bit more energy to run that faster. Being lighter, it's going to be easier on the feet. Maybe have a lighter upper as well, and maybe have a bit more of an aggressive rocker so it propels you forwards a bit more. But if you know, like for example, like you excessively pronate, you might want something a bit more stable on the speed shoe side. So for example, my mate Ollie, the speed shoe he went for, he needed more stability. He went for a wider based speed shoe. So that can having a wider base will give more stability. Whereas if he'd gone for like a Nike, the Nike Alpha Flies, which are a very fast shoe, but they are very narrow and they offer like zero stability. that's probably going to be better for someone who has been running for a long time, that knows that they can run faster, they run like more often, and they can tolerate the demands on their body. Whereas for somebody who's more of a beginner, they might be looking for, again, something which is just a bit more stable. And like we talked about, maybe a bit firmer ankle support, a slightly firmer foam throughout, not too soft as well.
Can you give me an example of a slightly wider, more stable speed shoe?
Yeah, so I'd say that the Asics Magic Speed 4s are slightly more stable than the Nike Alpha Flies. But then you could also go for like maybe a super trainer. Something like the Asics Super Blasts. They are great for running fast, but also you can do like a longer run in them as well. And because the race sort of faster shoes are very expensive, it's great to get a shoe which you can use for different runs, different types of runs, because otherwise you're just going to be using that shoe once a week. They're expensive and they wear out quite quickly. So if you can use them for more than one, then that's better as well. So maybe going for a super trainer would be a good step towards that faster shoe.
Let's move away from running. Singaporeans spend an awful lot of time in sandals or slippers. That can be pretty hard on the feet. What are some good sandals or slippers that you recommend?
So let's first of all talk about the effect that a flip-flop can have on the foot. So they are attached by a thong. They're not really attached to the foot. So when you're walking, you can't go for your normal heel-to-toe gait. You actually shorten your step length. You put more pressure directly through your heel. And actually, there's research to show that that increases the amount of fatigue that occurs over time. Mm-hmm. And we know that fatigue, that tiredness in the tendons and the foot muscles can lead to then some discomfort, which can lead to foot pain over time. They're also, because they're not attached, you grip in them, so it could cause some like clawing to the foot as well. And other parts of your foot aren't working hard, so because you're not lifting your foot up high off the floor, the front muscles, they just won't be worked. They're a bit underdeveloped. And then when you go to wearing that closed-in shoe, which is slightly heavier, you just can't tolerate it as much.
There is definitely like a Singapore shuffle.
Exactly.
It's like a lot of sort of hip and knee going on, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure.
I would say it's on par with the ballet flats. That's the other shoe I see a lot here.
Yeah.
So I would say 70%, I'm just guessing there, of girls just going to the office wearing ballet flats. My girlfriend wears them. And they're just so easy, aren't they? They're cheap. They look great, I think.
Yeah.
That's what they think anyway. But they're narrow. They're flimsy. They've got no support.
Yeah.
How bad?
Exactly, and I think it goes back to when we talk about barefoot shoes. We live in this hard, man-made environment, and if you're wearing your flip-flops, your sandals, they're not softening the blow on your feet. They're not supporting your feet, and in any case, it's just making things worse.
So I'm going to ask you about the best sandals or flip-flops in a second. Are there any good work shoes that these ladies can wear?
Yeah, I'd say there are some which are more like shoes. You want maybe something with a slightly thicker sole, like a rubber sole, gives it more firm, more stable. There's a Singaporean brand called Another Sole that does these anytime flats, which I think are pretty good, and they're wide and comfortable. And then I suppose like Vivea has come quite popular in Singapore too. Some of their shoes are a bit more sturdy, offer a bit more support, but it's style by style.
And then if you're a bit more cash, a bit more, startup, can you wear your Stan Smiths and things like that?
Yeah, a Stan Smith is going to be better than the ballet flats, 100%. But then like moving into like sport style shoes, they're just going to be that bit better as well. Got
it. So back onto the topic at hand, the flip-flop sandals selection, what do we got?
Yeah, so I personally think a slide is actually better than a flip-flop. I think it holds to your foot that bit better. There's more strap in contact with your foot, and they tend to be a bit more snug as well. Some slides do offer like a bit of a boat-shaped rocker to them. You've got your Hoka recovery slides, which got a rocker, and then you have your UFOS recovery slides, which have a nice boat shape to them. So they could be a bit better for walking around in. But I like Birkenstocks. I think Birkenstocks are great. They offer a lot of support. They're firm. They've got a wide base. They do offer some like toe grips, so it's more secure to your foot. But I would usually always go for the Milano style with the back strap, or maybe in the Boston clog style, you might be looking at the one with the strap on the back a bit, which is a bit better because it secures the foot in place, and it means that you can go heel to toe. You don't worry about it falling off your leg, so you can improve your biomechanics in that way. Other sandals, I suppose, like Keen sandals are pretty good. Teva sandals are pretty good too. So those types of sandals which are actually attached to your foot are going to be much better.
Nice. So here we are, onto our favourite section, where you get a chance to have your one wish for our population with regards to shoes. So this is our Magic Wand section.
Not like that.
Off you go.
So we know that 75% of people are wearing the wrong size shoe. A very, very simple thing for someone to do is to make sure they're wearing the right size shoe. Whether that's go into a shoe shop and getting your foot measured so you know exactly how long it is, or whether it's taking a piece of paper out, drawing around your foot and measuring it with a tape measure, getting those measurements in your notes so that every time that you buy a new shoe online, you can go onto their measurement guide and you can pick the shoe which is the right size for you. But you would always put 1 to 1.5 centimeters in front of your big toe. So add that to it and then order your shoe.
Okay, from positive to negative, we've had a lot of moans on today's podcast, but what's your one pet peeve when it comes to shoes?
Yeah, a huge frustration of mine is that other healthcare professionals that are treating foot pain, they'll happily do shockwave therapy for the foot pain. They'll do maybe some custom insoles, whatever it is that they're doing. People are spending lots of money, but they will not even consider looking at their shoes. So if you've got foot pain, the first thing you should consider is what you're actually putting on your feet.
And there it is, the end of our comeback. Thank you so much for joining us on our collaborative journey to health and performance.
Please make sure that you do like, subscribe, and get in the comments. Let us know if there's anything that you want to hear from us in our following podcasts.
From Paul the podiatrist, thank you.
Thank you.
And from me, Matt Winter, that's all we've got. See you soon.